Hey guys, welcome back to True Crime with Shannon, where I cover missing persons, unsolved cases, crime news, and more. Alright, we got some updates in the Rankin County case involving Michael Corey Jenkins and his friend. And again, I do want to let you guys know, trigger warning, this is a highly disturbing case. But it needs to get out there. And as you can see on the screen, these two black men were tortured, and one was in the hospital for weeks due to a gunshot to the mouth. You heard me correctly, to the mouth. And it's finally getting some media coverage thanks to Malik Shabazz, and there's some other folks involved in that. So I'm going to just go through some of the updates and play a bit of the presser that he gave late last week, and that way you guys can get caught up on the case. Because my first video where I question the legitimacy of this case is getting so much views and so much traction. And I'm hoping folks will see the updates here, because I did do an update last week. But it's like, but there's still a few people questioning it. And this is real. This is a real horrific situation, and folks need to know. We're hearing all over the place about Tyree Nichols, which is horrible, obviously, but a lot of folks are not hearing about this case in Mississippi. So I'm hoping to be a part of just getting the word out, because I'm all about truth and justice here on the channel. So this is out of Mississippi Today. It's a local non-profit news source. There are some others, so I will reference the ones that I'm able to come up with. So again, if you Google his name, though, you're going to come up with stuff. It was not like this about a week or so ago. You could not find anything on this case. So we're finally getting some media, and that's a big deal, because justice needs to be had for these two young men. Rankin County deputies beat, tortured two men, leaving one in the hospital for weeks, lawyers allege. On the right, that is Malik Shabazz, and on the left, that is Michael Corey Jenkins. He is the main victim, but his friend is also a victim in this case, and behind him, you can actually see his father as well. The FBI has opened an investigation into the alleged beating and torture of two black men by Rankin County deputies. The FBI Jackson Field Office, the United States Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division, and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Mississippi have opened a federal civil rights investigation into a color of law incident in the Rankin County into the Rankin County Sheriff's Office, according to a statement from the FBI. Weeks after Rankin County deputies raided a home and beat and threatened two black men and shot one in the mouth, a civil rights attorney is calling for justice, answers, and for the deputies to be charged. On Wednesday, now this is last week, Michael Corey Jenkins, 32, was released from the intensive care unit at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. He underwent 2 surgeries to treat his injuries to his mouth and head, including surgical removal of his tongue. As a result, he is unable to talk and now communicates through writing or gestures. Apparently his jaw is actually sewn shut right now. Easily, he could have been like Tyree Nichols, or on the long list of names of victims here of police abuse and police brutality, said Malik Shabazz of Black Lawyers for Justice in Washington, D.C., one of Jenkins' attorneys. On January 24th, Jenkins and another victim, Eddie Terrell Parker, 35, were at home in Braxton, where Parker lives, with the property owner when 6 white Rankin County deputies conducting a drug investigation raided. Shabazz said they did not announce themselves or show a search warrant. They accused the men of selling drugs and later charged them with possession of a controlled substance and possession of paraphernalia, the attorney said. For 90 minutes, Deputies exercised what Shabazz called intimidation and unjustified torture of Jenkins and Parker. The two men were punched, kicked, slapped, and tasered while handcuffed. They had guns pointed at them and were threatened with death, Shabazz said. There is no excuse for any of this behavior by any member of law enforcement. And that is a real legitimate picture of Michael Corey Jenkins in the hospital. The attorney said during that time, the deputies waterboarded Jenkins and Parker. Waterboarding is an illegal torture technique that involves strapping someone down, putting a wet rag in their mouth, and pouring water or some other substance over them to stimulate drowning. I'm hearing that it was milk. Whether it's water or milk, it doesn't make a difference. The fact is they were waterboarded. It was senseless and uncalled for, Parker said at the news conference. It was traumatizing and something I'd never thought I'd go through. I cannot imagine what these horrific things these two young men went through. It ended when a deputy placed a gun in Jenkins' mouth and pulled the trigger. Shabazz said Jenkins could have died, but the bullet exited his mouth. So apparently it went into his mouth and somehow it came out right by his ear. Can you imagine, from the grace of God, this young man survived this being shot in the mouth? I mean, that to me is shocking. When Mary Jenkins found out her son had been shot by police, she called the Rankin County Sheriff's Department. She asked what the charges were against Jenkins, but did not get an answer. She was only told he was under investigation. Okay, and that is his mom right there. That is Mary Jenkins. They acted like my son wasn't even human, she said, adding that the sheriff's office didn't treat her family well, kept Jenkins under their watch at the hospital, and prevented them from seeing him. On Tuesday, the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation interviewed Jenkins in his hospital room for the first time since the shooting, and he confirmed what deputies did to him, Shabazz said. The recounting of Jenkins and Parker's experience differs from information offered by investigators and law enforcement. Well, I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. A January 25th news release from the Department of Public Safety and Rankin County Deputies encountered a person now identified as Jenkins during a narcotics investigation at a Braxton residence and shot when deputies displayed a gun. During the Wednesday news conference, Jenkins shook his head when Shabazz asked whether he had a gun or handled one at any point during the incident. Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey released a 5-sentence statement Tuesday evening that did not address the allegations of mistreatment by the deputies against Jenkins and Parker. He said the sheriff's office contacted the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation to look into the deputies' actions. We are fully cooperating with that ongoing investigation and will continue to do so, Bailey said in a statement. Rest assured, if any deputy or suspect involved in this incident is found to have broken the law, he will be held accountable in accordance with the law. Well, I sure hope that that is true. It's the way it should be. Shabazz said the sheriff's office has not shared much information, including confirmation whether any officers have been placed on administrative leave. The attorney is asking for attempted unaliving, aggravated assault, and conspiracy charges to be filed against all the deputies. All body camera footage to be released, and Rankin County to respond immediately to all records requests related to the incident. I have to tell you, I have a bad feeling that there is no body cam footage. Or it was turned off before things got really heated in there. He read the allegations of brutality from a notice to file a lawsuit against Sheriff Brian Bailey and the government of Rankin County. After a 90-day period, Shabazz can file the lawsuit and is set to ask for $90 million in compensatory and punitive damages for the two men. Shabazz also wants the totally false charges against the men to be dropped. In addition to drug charges, Parker was also charged with disorderly conduct, and Jenkins was charged with aggravated assault, the attorney said. Another member of the men's legal team, attorney Trent Walker, said they will take the lead to get the charges against Jenkins and Parker dismissed. Something has to change because what is going on here should not go on in a civilized society, he said. I completely agree, and I believe he's got they both Jenkins and Parker have an excellent team behind them. Unfortunately, they had to go through this horrific situation that put Michael Corey Jenkins in the hospital, and he could have died. I just can't imagine if these men were sitting at home like they're claiming and there was no guns involved besides the officers. And even if they did pull a gun, let's just say they had drugs and one of them pulled a gun. There's still no excuse for any of this torture, for this waterboarding, and for him to be shot in the mouth. Period. No excuse. The two men, if they were guilty of something, they should have been raided, they should have been handcuffed, and immediately escorted to the jail. Period. End of story. The fact that any of this other garbage went on, there's no excuse in my mind. There's just no excuse. And so again, that right there on the right is the attorney, the main attorney. That is Malik Shabazz. I'm learning a lot more about him since he's picked up this case. And he's a very, very well-spoken gentleman. And I'm going to play a part of the press conference momentarily here that he spoke at last week. And again, Michael Corey Jenkins was not able to speak, but he did nod and answer to some questions that way. I'll post a link to the presser in full if you want to watch it. As far as the family of Michael Corey Jenkins, the mom and dad did speak, mostly his mother, and then the other gentleman of his friend there did talk, Mr. Parker, as well. So this has gone all the way, up, and I really, really hope that both these gentlemen, especially Michael Corey Jenkins, get the justice they deserve. But most of all, these cops, if they did these horrific things that they're being accused of, they should not only lose their jobs, but it should be worse. It should be just as bad as what's happening to those officers accused in the Tyree Nichols case. There's no excuse for any of this violence. And the fact that you carry a badge and a gun, I think it makes it worse when you do this sort of thing. I mean, it's bad enough as it is to have criminals out there doing this, but now you've got criminals wearing a badge. Zero excuse at all. I'm going to play a bit of the press conference. This was actually taken by another social media influencer creator, and I'm going to give credit to her as well in the information of this video if you would like to watch the entire video. I believe it's like over an hour because they do speak to other victims that are accusing this department of police brutality. Let's check out a bit of what attorney Malik Shabazz had to say last week in Rankin County.
On the night of January 24th, 2023, on the heels of Tyree Nichols' nearby death in Memphis, Tennessee, a shocking and senseless case of police torture and excessive force occurred in Rankin County, Mississippi. At that time, on January 24th, 6 white sheriff deputies employed by the Rankin County Sheriff's Department entered and raided without warning nor warrant a private residence at 135 Connolly Road in Braxton, Mississippi. Inside this dwelling were Michael Corey Jenkins, 32 years old. Mr. Eddie Terrell Parker, 35 years old. 2 African-American males. Without presenting any warrant information, with no warrant, the officers forced their way into the residence. Then these deputies immediately subdued and handcuffed these men. Immediately. At no point did Michael Jenkins or Eddie Sherrell Parker resist the Rankin County deputies in any way. What ensued after these 2 men were handcuffed and they were detained? What happened after that was an approximately 90-minute long intimidation and torture session where excessive force was used gratuitously on the handcuffed men. Rankin County deputies, without justification, repeatedly punched both Jenkins and Parker, intentionally and repeatedly kicked and abused both Michael Jenkins and Mr. Parker, and repeatedly, without cause, while handcuffed, tasered over and over again these 2 men while in handcuffs. Racial slurs were used by these 6 officers, calling them nigger at different points. In addition, Rankin County deputies, while these men were handcuffed in over 90 minutes, these deputies repeatedly pointed guns to the head of both men and threatened to kill them. Who was involved? Deputy Brett McAlpin, who's well known in Rankin County for his illegal actions. Also, Deputy Christian Detman were amongst the 6 Caucasian officers who have been identified as having jointly participated in these outrageous and dangerous acts. Over the course of an hour, with both men in custody, Mr. Jenkins and Mr. Parker were also subject to waterboarding techniques. That's what I said. I said both men were subject to waterboarding techniques. That means in addition to the punching, in addition to the kicking, in addition to the tasering, in addition to the racial slurs, all while handcuffed, while suffering this abuse, in the midst of it, incredibly, they were also subject to waterboarding. They were placed on their backs in handcuffs, and they had milk, alcohol, whatever could be found in the house. They were pouring it and pouring it on their faces to try to make the men believe that they were somehow drowning. I guess to try to elicit some kind of confession. This vicious and illegal conduct of forced intimidation by Rankin County, Mississippi deputies was followed by a Rankin County deputy placing his gun inside of Michael Jenkins' mouth and pulling the trigger and narrowly avoiding killing him and taking his life. After the events that I've described, and we'll get into further with you, I'm giving you a synopsis of these outrageous acts. But at the end of it, while handcuffed, Michael Jenkins had a gun placed in his mouth by a Rankin County deputy, and the trigger was pulled, intending to kill him. And it's only by God's grace that he stands here today, because the bullet escaped on the right side of his neck. And he's only by God's grace. We have to give the Lord a strong round of applause. Yeah. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
And when do we want it?
Now.
Now. Rankin County has shot Michael Jenkins while handcuffed. Rankin County has used excessive force, assault, intentional infliction of emotional distress, many illegal acts they have committed against these two men. Michael is lucky to be alive here today.
Yes.
Michael Jenkins had 2 critical surgeries that his mom is going to tell you about. These 2 critical life-saving surgeries narrowly prevented him from losing his life as it ruptured his arteries on both occasions. Back to my letter. This says here that the vicious and illegal conduct of forced intimidation by Rankin County, Mississippi deputies was followed by a Rankin County deputy shooting Michael Jenkins in the mouth while handcuffed, severely injuring him and necessitating multiple surgeries. Mr. Jenkins, in an interview with the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, have verified that these torts and criminal acts occurred at the hands of Rankin County deputies. I couldn't have been more proud as he was permitted a limited interview which was focused on the officers and the officers' conduct. And I couldn't be more proud from his hospital bed as Brother Michael Jenkins stood up and told the truth. And Brother Eddie Parker, despite pressure, despite intimidation, despite what everyone says about Rankin County, he rose to the challenge as well. He's standing up to tell the truth regardless to the persecution. Brother Michael Jenkins suffered serious and permanent physical injuries and disfigurement, as well as psychological damage from the abuse, torture, and this shooting. Mr. Parker was likewise beaten, waterboarded, and otherwise tortured, and has suffered physical and psychiatric damages at the hands of the deputies of Rankin County Sheriff's Department. This injury and all of this occurred on January 24th, 2023, 135 Connolly Road in Braxton, Mississippi. No warrant has been found. No warrant papers were served. No warrant was announced. Both of these claimants, soon to be plaintiffs, right now they're crime victims. They're what?
Crime victims.
They're what?
Crime victims.
Before we go any further, we have to make it clear. We are demanding that all 6 officers involved in the January 25th shooting in the mouth of Michael Jenkins while handcuffed, we're demanding that all of the officers be immediately indicted, arrested, and brought into custody.
Correct. Correct. Yes.
We must be clear that the officers, the 6 Caucasian officers, the 6 Rankin County deputies involved in this incident have committed crimes that are against the state law of Mississippi, and they have also violated federal civil rights criminal violations, and they must be brought into custody. And so we want the officers jailed immediately. We want them what?
Jail.
You want them what?
Jail.
We are demanding the indictment and the arrest of the officers for these offenses.
So that's just a few minutes, and that's him reading the paperwork that has been filed, that they're going to have 90 days to respond to these attorneys about what they've done to these 2 gentlemen. So I'm going to keep track of that. I don't know how many updates I'll be doing, but I'm definitely going to keep track of that. And if folks want me to do more updates, I will. This is definitely not acceptable, not okay, not even nothing. It's horrific. No one should be should feel like they're in their home or a friend's home and have cops bust in, put handcuffs on you, and torture and beat you. This should not happen. No. I mean, there's just not even remotely an excuse for that. And like I said before, if one or both of these gentlemen had drugs or warrants or what have you, like they're claiming, they should have been arrested and taken to jail. The rest of this stuff, to me, that goes to show all 6 of these cops are criminals. They crossed the line from being a cop to being a criminal on that night, and it sounds like possibly before that time. But I completely agree. They all need to be held accountable, just like the cops are being held accountable in Memphis for Tyree Nichols. Period. I'm so glad that Malik Shabazz and the others are on this and taking on this case for these 2 young men. And I look forward to seeing justice be served. And again, it's getting some media. We're seeing it come out, but it is not getting nearly the kind of folks that should be able to see this story. And that's sad. That makes me think there's maybe others out there happening across this country that we don't know about. And that always makes me sad when someone has done a horrific injustice. I don't care whether it's the color of your skin, your culture, there's no excuse, period, end of story. So, yeah. All right, guys, that's all I've got for this one here. Again, I'll let you guys know when I hear of any updates from Mr. Shabazz and them regarding this lawsuit. He did say they have 90 days, so I don't know how long it's going to take for them to respond to it, and we'll see what further responses Rankin County and all that have to this, and the FBI has it right now. So we'll see. We'll see what's coming, in the next probably 30 to 90 days. We'll see what happens. So, all right, guys, hit the like button on your way out if you haven't already. It helps the video get traction. It helps the algorithm because folks need to hear about Michael Corey Jenkins and his friend, Mr. Parker. This needs to get out. This is very important. And, like I said, I'm small. I'm a small creator, but I just do my best in all these cases to help get the word out. And that's what I want to do with this one. I want to see justice for these 2 young men. All right, guys, thank you very much. I hope you have a great rest of the day or evening. And most of all, stay safe.